check if it's recording. Okay. Hello guys. You guys just abandoned me. Rude. And I even brought you cookies. Alright. Let me get Power School pulled up. Go ahead and turn on your cameras so I can see your lovely faces. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Amber, Sam, Natalia, Jaden. I know they abandoned us. Austin, Jacob, Tomas, Parker. All right, we got our peoples. Not hurt or anything. All these delicious cookies. Nobody to eat them except for me. Okay.
Miss Jackson?
Oh my goodness, yes, Sam.
In about 45 minutes, my parents are getting home, and we're having my dad come over, and we're redoing our bathroom. I'm gonna be helping him with that, so I wanted to know, and for Gosha too, I wanted to know what I was gonna be doing because I kind of need to, yeah.
Okay.
For fifth block.
For fifth block, is that what you're saying? You're gonna be on too during fifth block.
Sam?
Sam?
Oh crap! Sorry, I was talking. I realized I didn't have my mic on.
Do it all the
For
time.
about the next 45 minutes, we'll be back. We're redoing that. We're redoing our hallway. So I wanted to get a rundown on what we're going to be doing. That way I can get it for fourth and fifth block because I'm going to be here for about the next 45 minutes.
Okay, so for fourth block we are doing notes. They're closed notes. We'll see how many notes you can get before you have to leave, and then the rest you can email me and I will get those slides sent to you. But I also believe the slides are linked on the HyperDoc. Yes, I linked the slides on the HyperDoc. So you can go onto the HyperDoc and look at the day 7, the dialogue narration and literary devices slides, and it will give you the answers to put into your notes, okay? And if you can get that in by tonight, that would be fantastic. For block 5, you are having time to work on your annotated bibliographies.
And grammar
Oh,
notes.
great.
Oh, and grammar notes.
And grammar notes. Okay. On the slides. You said it's linked on the HyperDoc on day 7.
For block 4, yes.
Yeah. Read to HyperDoc. I can get to it.
I think it is slide number 39.
On Wednesday.
And,
Thank you.
okay, and we are also doing vocab, so do vocab day 3. Speaking of, go ahead and pull out your guys' vocab packets. And I am going to share something with you guys. Parker gave us permission, and he created a slideshow. a second apparently. Not moving up there. Okay guys, can you see the slideshow? No?
Is it on your computer?
Yeah. Okay. That's what happened. It just went to a different page. Okay, so what he did is he made a slideshow for week 1 vocab and then put a picture for each of his days. And then on day 5, he put both of his pictures. And that is an excellent example of how you can put that together so it's all in one place. Also, Blookit is no longer blocked. So if you go and play a game, you can just take a screenshot and then post it in here on to turn it on that vocabulary week 1 packet assignment. Okay. As for vocab, we are on day 3. So day 1 we had voracious, indiscriminate, imminent, steeped, and replete. Day 2 we had abound, technology, prognosticate, automaton, and matron. Day 3 we will be using paradox, realm, annuls, compound, and tinge. Yeah, okay. So, I am going to read you the paragraph, and then you will take some time answering the sample sentences I'll give you. Was 4 minutes enough time yesterday? Someone let me know in the chat or shout it out. Okay, if 4 minutes is enough time, use the raise hand feature. Thanks, Sam. Okay. Cool. Perfect. Okay, so I'll give you another 4 minutes this time. So let me read you the paragraph. It's a man's world. How paradoxical that the world's greatest chefs have all been men. Cooking would clearly seem to be a field that lies exclusively within women's realm. Yet the annals of cookery are replete, that was one of our words, on Monday, with masculine names. Brilliant, Savourian, oh my gosh, I can't say that one. Ritz, Diet, Larousse. To compound the puzzle, there has rarely been a tinge of rumor or scandal casting doubts on the masculinity of these heroes of cuisine. All right. Go ahead and fill in your sample sentences. You have until 33.
Go ahead and mute yourself real quick. It's annals.
Annals.
No, not annals. Annals.
Okay.
Okay.
Annals.
Annals.
Yeah, after I said it, I was like, sentence. Annals. Alright, we are at the 33 mark. So now we are gonna go over our answer for the sample sentences. I would appreciate you guys volunteering to share, but if I'm not getting any volunteers, then I'll have to call on you. So, who wants to volunteer the answer for 1? His gloom was now blank by the failing mark on his geometry test. Alright, I heard a ding. Did somebody raise their hand? Sam?
Yeah, I was gonna say compound, because it's like added to.
Good job. Compounded. His gloom was now compounded by the failing mark on his geometry test. Thank you. Okay. I need a volunteer for the second one. The correct pronunciation of this word I will correct whenever we get to it. So, the blank of sports are replete with the names of great black athletes.
Is it annals?
Yes. And the correct pronunciation is annals. Annals. I pronounced it wrong. Okay. Thank you, Jacob. For the third question, one of the great blank of American life is that though minority groups have suffered injustices, nowhere in the world would so many varied groups live together so harmoniously. Need a volunteer. Sam?
Is it one great paradox?
Yes. One of the great paradoxes of American life is that though minority groups have suffered injustices, nowhere in the world would so many varied groups live together so harmoniously. Thank you. Okay, number 4. A blank of garlic is all that is necessary in most recipes. I need a volunteer. Thank you, Tomas and Austin. Tinge is correct. A tinge of garlic is all that is necessary in most recipes. And the last one. The cruel king would not allow the prince to enter his blank, restricting him to the forest, which abounded with wild animals. Abounded was one of our words from yesterday. Realm. Thank you, Austin. It is realm. Okay, I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes to fill out your definitions, and then I'll have you guys share. Sam, did you have a question? Okay.
No.
Alright guys, we're pretty much at the 2-minute mark. So, for 6, paradox, what definition did you guys get? Someone share. B, thank you Cameron, it is B. A statement that at first seems to be absurd or self-contradictory, but which may in fact turn out to be true. Thank you Cameron. 7 is realm. Someone, E, thank you Cameron. E, a special field of something or someone, or a kingdom, realm, correct. Okay, number 8 is annals. D is correct, historical records, thank you. Then we have compound. Sam says C, and that is correct, to increase or add to. Our last one is tinge. Austin says A, and that is correct. A trace, smattering, or a slight degree. Thank you guys. That is awesome. So we will continue vocab tomorrow, but for now we're gonna switch back into our fictional narrative unit. So go ahead and put your vocabulary away. And then I want you to go to Google Classroom. And at the top of the stream, you should have a new assignment called Closed Notes. Go ahead and open yours up. Go ahead and open up these closed notes. Alright, so we have been doing our fictional narrative and slowly building it up together. Now today we're going to talk about dialogue, narration, and other literary devices that you can and should use in your fictional narrative. So our objective for today is to integrate narration, dialogue, and literary devices into our fictional narratives. We're going to be taking some notes. I have an exit ticket for you, and I have work time on there. Not very likely there will be extra time for work. Kind of forgot it was Wednesday. I want to remind you on your rubric, this is a screenshot straight off of your rubric, you will need 2 different literary devices in your final project. As a minimum, 2 or more literary devices are present and helps drive the plot, that will get you the highest score on the literary devices story elements section of your rubric, okay? So, you're taking these notes to help you get a really good understanding of all the literary devices, which you've probably been talking about since middle school and possibly before. And so, it should be a review on a lot of these and maybe just a refresher on some of the less common or concrete ones. So, go to Classroom, open your closed notes assignment. If you have not done that yet, it will be handed in at the end of class today. Sam, I know that you were going to be leaving us, so if you can get yours in at the end of the day, that would be perfect. So, you have narration versus dialogue. So, narration is the insertion of background information or commentary within a story. So that should be the first thing you add to your closed notes. Narration is the insertion of background information or commentary within the story. In this image below, right here, this is how narration will look in Pixton. And I will show you tomorrow how you can actually do this setup. But this is how it will appear in Pixton. Dialogue. Dialogue is conversation between characters. And it will look like this in Pixton, which this one is really easy to set up. So dialogue is conversation between characters. That's the second thing you need. Now, before we get into the literary devices section of this, raise your hand if you know what a literary device is. All right. No hands are up. Sam knows. Okay. What if I say metaphor, simile, allegory, alliteration? Yeah? Is that jogging some memories? Okay, so those are various fictional, not fictional, but literary devices. So, let's learn about them a little bit more. So, an allusion. An allusion is a reference to a person, place, thing, or event in the real world. I have an example for what is your kryptonite. So, kryptonite is the event, it's the thing that takes place in a comic in our world. So we're pulling this thing into our world and alluding to it. So if you say, what is your kryptonite? Someone would understand that, what is your weakness? Because kryptonite is Superman's weakness. Okay? Allusion is a reference to a person, place, thing, or event in the real world. I forgot to highlight that. Diction is word choice or style used by the writer to convey their message. And there's various forms of diction. Okay. So one of the forms is the formal diction. And that would sound like, I bid you adieu. And whenever you put this into a story and you write a character who talks in formal diction, you're going to expect either the character's from a high class or is set in an older era. And that's what formal diction is for. It's supposed to elevate that character by elevating the language. Then you have informal, and that's stuff that you would say to a peer, like "see you later," and that's going to give this sense of familiarity. The informal language will. And then you have slang, and that's kind of stuff that maybe you will hear out of a teenager. And they'll say things like laters, peace out, see ya, or whatever you guys say. There's lots of different slangs. I thought maybe those would be the easiest ones to talk about though. And then there's colloquial language, and colloquial language is stuff you can hear in different regions, and sometimes they are within different groups of people. So this one's kind of a southern colloquial saying, and when you read it, you can almost hear it. The "y'all come back now" here, you can almost hear how that would sound coming out of a southern person. Alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of sounds at the beginning of words in a sentence or a title. So in fictional narratives, you generally see alliteration happening in titles. And then you can see alliteration happen a lot in poetry, because alliteration gives music and rhythm to the language, and when you're writing poetry, that's something you like to hear. So, like Sleepy Siren sings sad songs, you get this sound a lot. And then these couple of titles, Peter Pan and Black Beauty, those are examples of alliteration in a title. Next we have allegory. Allegory is a figure of speech where abstract ideas are described using character, events, or other elements. So this happens a lot in fiction. They will use, specifically sci-fi or fantasy, they will use these other worlds and these other types of people, these other species even, to talk about things that are going on in our world possibly, and then discuss those things because it deflects the, it deflects how direct a topic can be. So in Zootopia, there's an allegory on tolerance and equality because there's this predator versus prey thing, and there is a lot of discrimination against prey animals in the police force, and then predators are really mistrusted amongst prey animals, and we can see how that can reflect real life problems. And so an allegory is a way that you can approach that without directly saying what you're saying. Then colloquialisms is an expressions, words, and phrases that are used in informal, everyday speech, including slang. One of the most frequent ones I see is "I don't know" or gonna have to go. In Kansas, a lot of the time the G is dropped off of ing words. So I'm going fishing, swimming, jumping, playing. There is just no G. Then you have the bomb and buzz off, some more colloquialisms or slang. And then you have euphemisms, which you've probably heard of a euphemism before. But it's generally commonly described as sexually in nature, but they're not always. So they're terms that refer to something impolite or unpleasant. So, for an example, tipsy instead of drunk, or rear end instead of butt, or cross the rainbow bridge instead of diet. So those are all euphemisms. The next thing is flashback. Now, flashback would be something that would be really good to use in your fictional narrative if you wanted to give the hero kind of a mental trial where they have to see something that they've gone through and how it relates to their present. And you can use a flashback for that. So a flashback is when the narrator goes back in time for a specific scene or chapter. But this is only done in order to give more context for the story. So they can't have a flashback for no reason. You have to have a reason for sending your reader back in time, okay? For example, if you're reading a story about a woman who is getting ready for her wedding, and as she puts on her veil, she remembers 3 years prior when she met her fiance. You could then describe that scene and those actions and what happened in that place, and that could be a flashback. Am I going too fast, guys? Raise your hand if you need me to slow down. You need me to slow down, Daniel? Do you need me to go back at all? Okay. I'll just go a little bit slower. The next one is foreshadowing. And foreshadowing is when the author places little elements within the story that gives clues about what will happen later in the story. The best types of foreshadowing is whenever the reader does not consciously pick up on it until after the story has reached its completion point, okay? Or whenever the reader goes for a second read through and then they see that thing that they missed and they're like, oh my gosh, it was right there this whole time. I had that experience while I was reading 1984. There's an excellent foreshadowing moment that happens in that book. There's multiple, actually. So an example of this is in The Lion King. Mufasa tells Simba about the circle of life and that when the great kings die, they become stars in the sky, okay? And not long after this speech to Simba, does Mufasa die. So that was an instance of foreshadowing. Imagery. Imagery is the theory of show don't tell. And it may be hard for you to be able to do something like that in your graphic novels because they're visual already. But imagery is using visually descriptive language and focusing on sensory details. What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you see? What do you feel? Those things will help really solidify the scene for your reader, because if you can describe a smell without telling them what it is, or if you said flies were buzzing and so-and-so was choking on the odors wafting through the house, that would be more imagery versus so-and-so showed up to this house and it was disgusting, okay? But one has more impact. So my example here is the giant tree was ablaze with orange, red, and yellow leaves that were beginning to make their descent to the ground. So you can really see that tree You can see how big it is, you can see how bright the colors are, and you can even see the leaves starting to drift to the ground. Next we have personification. I'm sure you guys have heard of personification. You see examples of personification all the time. I mean, you've seen it in The Lion King, you've seen it in Aladdin. Pretty much any Disney movie that has animals is personification. Aesop's Fables has a ton of personification. It is to give human-like qualities to non-human elements. There are some like more subtle ways to use personification as well. Like in this example, the lake was left shivering. Lakes can't shiver by the touch of the morning wind. Wind cannot touch. So that is personifying the lake and the wind, giving them human-like qualities. Next is juxtaposition. This one may be a little confusing at first, but it's placing contrasting elements next to one another to emphasize one or both. So the phrase, "I hate loving you," it emphasizes both of those feelings at the same time. And then, if you think of the entire Up intro, there was just this wonderful, beautiful scene of how their love came to be and how their life was and the hardships and the struggles and them coming back together and all of their love. And it ended with the main character being without his loved one and being really upset. So that was able to emphasize that wonderful image of their love story, emphasized his grief, so that the audience was able to really empathize with that character. So juxtaposition is great for placing emphasis on different elements. Next we have automatopoeia. And that is those words that are the sound something makes. So you have like boom, bang, pop, creak, splash. When you say all of those words, you can almost hear that sound. And since you can't put audio files into a book or into a novel or poem or anything that's written, we use these automatopoeias to target that sense of hearing. And that's what this is able to do for us. The next thing we have is metaphor. So this one usually ends up with another one. Would someone please share with me the other literary device that generally accompanies metaphor?
Simile.
Simile, thank you, Sam. So a simile, do you know the difference between a metaphor and a simile? Anybody?
One uses like or as, the other one doesn't.
Absolutely. Do you remember which is which?
Metaphor does not use like or as, and simile does.
Yes, correct. So metaphor is a comparison between two things that are not alike and does not use like or as. So the example I have here was, she was drowning in a sea of her own despair. It does not use like or as, but it does compare things that are not alike. Drowning in a sea and being in despair are not the same, but if she is drowning in a sea of her own despair, it kind of gives a stronger meaning to despairing. Simile is also a comparison between two things that are not alike, but it uses like or as within it. So the example for this same thing, but as a simile, is it was like she was drowning in a sea of her own despair. Same concept, same meaning almost, but one is a metaphor and one is a simile. Now we have symbolism, and symbolism is something most people know about subconsciously. And marketing teams use this to their advantage. A lot of colors have different symbols and can elicit different emotions. So if you see the colors yellow and red, what does that make you think of? Anybody shout it out. What does it make you think? Yellow and red together.
The sunset.
Makes you think of a sunset. Okay. Anybody else?
Kind of like fire.
Fire. Okay. Jacob, did you just answer?
Yeah, I said the fire.
Okay. Your hand went up, so I didn't know if like someone else answered and then. Okay, so we have like sunset and fire, and both of those are kind of fire-like. And it can also make you hungry. Did you know those colors could make you hungry?
McDonald's.
McDonald's, they use that red and yellow color to elicit the hunger response and to pull them in. You can also use this in your storytelling. So if you have a dove returning to a place, it may be a symbol of peace and tranquility. If you're using images of water, it can be cleansing or rebirth. And sometimes even there can be some symbolism can have different meanings in different cultures. So it can mean one thing in our culture and something vastly different in a different culture. So you also have to pay attention to who your audience is as well when you're utilizing symbolism to tell a story implicitly. And then the owl is for knowledge. That is symbolism. Tone. Tone conveys the narrator's opinion, attitude, or feeling about what is written. So, if you read the smell of chlorine and fresh cut grass sent a thrill of excitement through Jessie, summer was finally here. What kind of tone do you think that narrator is trying to convey? Raise hand, shout it out, type it in the chat. What tone do you think that narrator is trying to convey? The smell of chlorine.
Joyful.
Joyful, thank you. Who was that? Was that Austin?
No, that's
Tomas.
not.
Thank you, Tomas. Yes, joy. That is the tone of that example. The smell of chlorine and fresh cut grass sent a thrill of excitement through Jessie. Summer was finally here. Okay. So that should be it. Does anyone need me to go back to a slide that you maybe didn't get filled in? You want to ask a question about it? Let me know.
Miss, what did you say for what is your kryptonite? I didn't get it.
Yes, what is your kryptonite? It is an illusion. So it's when you're referencing a person, place, or thing, or event in the real world. Let me think if I can think of a different example of an illusion. Do you not understand what an illusion is, or did you not know the word that you needed for the notes?
I didn't know the word I needed for their notes.
Okay, okay. Are you good now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Does anyone need another slide? Okay, well, go ahead and submit that closed note assignment to Classroom, and we have a few more notes. Let's see what time it is. 27. We have a few more things, and then it'll probably be just about time to let you guys go, but we might also have a little bit of time to work after all. We'll see. So go ahead and hand in your closed notes. Okay, well,
Miss Jackson,
yeah.
I'm gonna go.
Okay, did you hand your closed notes in?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, that's fine.
Alright, bye. You.
Okay. Let's go back to the end of our notes. So, I want to remind you, you are going to need 2 different literary devices in your final project. So, these notes, after I get them graded and handed back to you, will help you refresh your memory on what each of those literary devices are and maybe how you can use it in your story. So what I need you to do now is to go to Socrative. I'm going to put a link in the chat. There's also a link in the week 2 HyperDoc called Socrative. And if you go to that and then enter Jackson004, which is my last name and Miss Gosha's room number, you can then do my Socrative assignment, but I have to launch it first. Let me get that launched. Okay. Okay, there is the link. Jackson004. Waiting for the activity to begin. Okay, it did not activate. Alright, it should be active now. Go ahead and enter your last name and your first name. and fill that out.
What's the teacher's question?
Huh? Hang on. Did I launch the wrong quiz somehow? Oh, well that's annoying. Okay. I'm sorry guys. Okay. Go back to the login and try that again. Doing it again. Alright, ignore that. I'm gonna send you guys a form. It's not working right. Okay, so, review preview. I need you to hand in your closed notes from the lecture today. Tomorrow will be a work day. We are not gonna have any time to work today. And I'm going to be meeting with as many of you as I can tomorrow and the rest of you on Friday. As soon as I get that form submitted, please do it today. It will help me set up my meetings with you guys tomorrow. I'm really frustrated that I couldn't get the soccer tip to work for you guys because it's really quick to answer through, but it's not gonna work with me right now. Friday is a vocabulary quiz, so that will also be the day that you hand in your vocab notes. And you'll just post those pictures to that packet, and like I showed you, you can stick it in a slideshow like Parker did. That was super awesome. You get extra credit for doing Look It reviews, so don't forget to give yourself that little bump because you never know when you're going to need that point. On Friday, we don't do that last page together, right?
No, last 2 pages are on them.
Okay, the last 2 pages are on you, and you should use them to help you review and study for your quiz. With that, happy Wednesday. We're halfway there through the week. It's St. Patty's Day. I want you to have a wonderful day. And just remember, we're like 2 more days away from spring break since today's almost over. With that, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.